7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
All right, welcome to podcast number 7. This is just get out and do it. Get out to the market as fast as possible. We're going to be discussing a number of things today. A lot of stuff around A/B testing, a lot of stuff about how to get out to the market as quickly as possible with your IT products and get that customer feedback. That is absolutely what's important, and that's our discussion point for today. I look forward to sharing these ideas with you. All right, welcome to the podcast number 7, and today we're going to talk a lot about, just as the intro talked to you, we're going to talk a lot about what I see as the top 5 errors that are causing individuals not to be able to get their product out to market, and when they do, why those products fail. And it's really going to focus in on the customer feedback and trying to get that as fast as possible. And we'll talk a lot about Mark Zuckerberg as well, and how he has this entrepreneurial spirit where he actually gets stuff out to the market as fast as possible. Whether or not the market is ready for that doesn't matter. He's going to get that feedback and then adjust as necessary. So that's really, really important. So what are the first problems that I really see with delivering IT products? Number one is the customers really don't know what they want. So when you talk to a customer and you sit down with a 9-month project, 12-month project, you're going to typically utilize the waterfall approach, which I don't recommend. I highly recommend the Scaled Agile framework for this, and we'll talk a lot about why that is. But number one, if you talk about requirements gathering at the start of a 9 or 12-month project, they're typically going to run for a couple of months. You pull those all together, and really the customer at that point in time may not know what they want. And as such, what you get back is a bunch of documentations that documenting a product where they're interpreting that documentation to be one thing, and the developers are going to interpret it as something else. And typically what you're going to find is there's a knowledge gap, or a gap between the actual requirements of what they believe they're getting and the actual documentation requirements. So number one, Scaled Agile Framework helps solve this particular problem by doing something called Program Increment Planning, or otherwise known as PI planning. And what is that? That's where you're going to come together as a set of developer groups, a set of integrators that if you're relying on other people in the organization or outside external organizations, you're going to come together along with the business people, and you're actually going to commit to a 5 sprint, which is 10 weeks, program increment. And at the end of that, you should have a highly potential shippable product. And so getting something from concept out to market in 10 weeks is something that's not normally done during a huge waterfall project, and then being able to develop and give that incremental value back to the customer immediately is the most important thing. So if you're pushing during that PI planning, if you're actually bringing the teams together that are going to commit to that, the most important thing that is happening at that meeting is the feature sets. So what the customer thinks they want is being broken down into acceptance criteria during that PI planning, which is typically a day and a half to 2 days. And everybody's agreeing that this acceptance criteria is going to deliver this product in this particular way. And when it does that, it's going to meet the requirements of the application. And this spurs on discussion directly with the development team, directly with the program leaders, directly with the business and the SMEs that are on the project, and they try to solve those problems all together. And that's one of the most important things that you can do, is solving those problems by having a clear understanding. And program increment planning, feature set down to acceptance criteria, really brings that to the forefront. The second problem I see is requirements are changing during the course of the project itself, which is it leads on with the problem number one, that the customers really don't know what they want until they see it. So because a 9-month project or a 12-month project as the market evolves in this day and age, things can change. So if we take a look at the latest craze, which is spinners, spinners are something that is become very, very hot. So this is a toy that has been produced, and it's really taken off. And it took off just like Pokemon Go. Everybody started to do it. So I don't think 6 months from now, or 9 months from now, that we're actually going to see that being very hot. So if you took an approach that you're going to put a spinner out to market, but you want it to be the best spinner, the highest velocity spinner that you can, and if you take a look at that and you start a development cycle right now that's not going to go to market for 9 months, can you imagine that the actual spinner phase might have been over by then, and then you've missed all that market opportunity, and you're going to go out to market with something that there's no people willing to buy anymore. So that's really what we talk about when it's the requirements are changing during the course of the project. The more lead time you have between product development and out to market, the more things are going to change in the market, the more likely it is that you're going to have missed the mark. So how do you do that? How do you get out to market faster? Again, SAFe 4.0, the Scaled Agile Framework, allows you to get in front of the customer as fast as possible with the particular product. And if you talk about an IT product in this case, within 2 or 4 weeks, you're actually going to get a demonstration of a live integrated system in a lower environment that's going to be able to give you feedback immediately. Now, if you talk about minimal viable product here, and you're getting the highest quality and the highest likelihood to be utilized of the product, the feature set to the top of the stack, what you're going to end up with is a potentially shippable product after 2 or 4 weeks that can actually go to market and start to get the market feedback. So even though the business thinks they understand exactly what the market wants, the market might not. So making sure that you're getting things out to the market as quickly as possible with the highest quality code that you can is absolutely important. Problem number 3 is really the customers that have unreasonable timelines. Now, what does that mean? That basically means that they think that you can develop something very, very quickly. So what have we got to do as a set of development organizations? We've got to come to market even quicker with capability. So how do we do that? We take away the need to set up environments, the need to do builds, the need to do manual testing. And how do we do that? We automate everything. So DevOps, so looking at your development environment itself, making sure that the developers spend the time implementing the feature set that's been agreed on, along with the acceptance criteria, to get that particular feature into the code line as fast as possible. So when you talk about a developer's life, they come in the morning, they should be able to start their development work, and they should, as soon as they're finished with that and they've done their locally unit tests, they want to push that to an environment as fast as possible. So they check that in. Now, if your check-in process actually executes the build, runs the unit tests, runs the full regression test, the automation suite, that developer's going to know immediately, did he cause something wrong with that environment? Did he have a misunderstanding about what that integration point was and how to get that back up and running again? He's going to know immediately. Within a few minutes of him checking something in, he's going to know whether he met the mark from the acceptance criteria perspective or whether he didn't. And in that particular case, he can fix it as fast as possible. So dealing with the problem that the customers have unreasonable timelines, we as technologists can do a lot to make sure that we're developing as efficiently as possible, which means focusing on the development effort and really getting to that program increment where we're going to each one of those ends of sprints in those sprint demos to get that customer feedback as fast as possible. And those DevOps tools allow us to do that. Problem number 4 is really the communication gaps that exist between the customers, engineers, and the project managers, along with any of the other business people that are on the project. When you pull all those people together, you can get a better understanding. But if the business is not technical and the technical people aren't understanding the business, you're going to get a huge gap between the development team understanding of what they're trying to deliver and the actual business as well. And I'll take that one step further as well. if you take a look at the gap that exists between how the business operates and what the market really wants, there's another potential gap. So you may actually, if you work on a 9 or 12 month project, you may actually push something out to market that is not even needed when it gets there and can be a complete failure. So again, getting it out to market as fast as possible, getting in front of the customer again. And again, Safe 4.0 addresses this with the customer demo, the build automation to get your product out to the market, and then pushing it out there. Problem number 5 is really the development team doesn't understand the customer's organization. So if we again, this is a gap between the developers and the business itself, and understanding all the terminology in the business. And again, the last thing that's going to address this is really getting that demo in front of the customer and getting it out there. So once you've got that customer understanding that this product has the minimum necessary to go to market, and from my perspective, I think pushing that stuff out to the market as fast as possible. I think you should be putting new features out to the market as soon as they're stable and ready to go. You definitely want to get that out there and then start your A/B testing. And if you take a look at what A/B testing is all about, A/B testing gives you a capability where you can try out 2 versions of a specific product or a specific version of the product. And Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook, he did an amazing job with this. If you go back in his history and talk about or think about how he developed this organization, you find a lot of information out there about Facebook and how it was developed. He actually started inside of his own home with what he called ZuckNet, and ZuckNet was a precursor to the social networks. It gave the capabilities for Mark and his family to communicate electronically. And then what he did from there was able to find a need for this social media. Now, he wasn't the only one that was doing this social interaction at that time, but he was the one that could get stuff to the market the quickest. And how did he do that? He didn't wait for stuff to be perfect. So when he started off Facebook, he launched it at Harvard University, and Harvard was the first one to go live with it, but then he decided that he needed more users, so he was going to expand it to other universities. Now, the Harvard users were not interested in any of the other universities joining the Facebook, and so that was the feedback that he got for the customer. He had a feeling that it might be different, so what he did was he expanded anyway. And when he expanded, he realized the interactions between the university students across campuses, across universities, was really, really high. And he knew this by doing some A/B testing. So he took a subset of his Harvard students that were actually participating in Facebook, and he compared it with that's the general population, those that had access to the other universities and those that didn't, as far as expanding their Facebook network to other universities. And he found that the ones that did engaged more with the platform and actually had a lot more friends and a lot more interactions at that level and spent a lot more time on the site. So once he found this out with this A/B testing, the subset that actually had it was something that individuals actually wanted, he then expanded it to the entire Facebook community. And then that way expanding the network beyond those universities and opening it up eventually to everybody, anyone that wasn't on a university campus. And of course, we all know where it's at today. So if you take a look at his organization, he has built into the process this concept of A/B testing, where any developer can come up with an idea and actually develop 2 versions of that idea, take a base population and take that base population and test it against a new version. And if we take a look at this example here for A/B testing, you can see that you've got side A with a specific feature set and side B with a specific feature set. And sometimes this is also known as split testing, but it's basically to compare 2 versions of a application to see which one performs better. So if we take this A/B testing to an example where we've got 2 web pages, We got variation 1 of the web page, and in this particular case, let's say they're utilizing the color orange up the top corner, and it's a particular feature set, and that particular feature set is maybe it's social media interaction. And variation B may be just placement of an advertisement, and that would be shown here in the green. And what we can see is the conversion rate or the click-through rate on the 50% of the visitors that are in variation A compared with the 50% of the visitors that came through on variation B. We can see the conversion rate is a lot higher on the variation A. And that tells us that we can put something to market there that's going to be accepted and have a much more interactive approach than variation B. Now, once variation A is actually out in the market, we can continue to do A/B testing with other feature sets that we want to put in that slot, and eventually figure out what is the best container, what is the best feature that needs to go up in the top right hand corner of this particular web page, so that we can get back that feedback and understand exactly what we should be placing there. So A/B testing, you can wrap your entire organization around A/B testing, and you can do subset testing where you take, let's say, 10,000 of your users, and you give 5,000 users a feature set, a brand new feature set that's been implemented in a specific way. You give the other 5,000 members a feature set that's been implemented in a second way, and then you get back that analytics that are going to tell you which one performed better, and then you're going to know which one you should roll out to the general population. And that's the approach you need to take for all entrepreneurship, where you're trying to get a product out to the market. So don't worry that it doesn't have all the features that you need. Just get it out to the market, get that feedback from the market, and then adapt as necessary. So I hope today you've learned something around the issues that I see in the market with the standard waterfall approach and taking 12 months to get to market. My approach is let's get some feature sets out there as quickly as possible. Once you've got the minimal viable product out in the market, you can add feature sets on a bi-weekly basis, or at the most every month you should be releasing something to the market and doing A/B testing to figure out which one works best. Again, I really appreciate you guys joining me for this. I really enjoy giving these top tips here for innovation. You can follow me on Twitter at innovate8excel. Or you can follow me again on Instagram at the same, which is innovate_excel, and again that's the number 8 that's in there. And of course at this daily podcast channel here on YouTube, and I look forward to it. If you want to leave me comments below about specific innovation topics, whether it is you're a new entrepreneur that wants to get started, or anything or any topics related to innovation, any topics related to getting a startup off the ground, please leave the comments below. I'll check those comments and do a future show on what it is that you guys want. And then maybe even I'll throw 2 up at one time to do an A/B testing to see which one was most watched once I get it out there. So again, I really appreciate you joining me, and I look forward to bringing you next episode, which will be episode 8.